Hello and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. I'm Alex.
I'm Julio, and thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, head over to Apple Podcasts to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Help promote the algorithm and spread the word.
You can also find us on SoundCloud to subscribe and review, and don't forget to visit our main website, wearethecontrarians.com.
Follow us on Twitter at Contrarian Prime, and to like us on Facebook, visit facebook.com/Contrarian Prime.
And if you have the willpower to keep up with our pretentious ramblings, you can follow us individually at Contrarian Alex for myself and at Ovnio for Julio. That's OVNIO.
Now, time for the podcast. And we are recording for Johnny Mnemonic.
Get me the iPhones. When he calls for the... did you hear him say that? When he calls for the little thing to put over his head, he calls it an iPhones?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was already overloaded with...
It's understandable. Not only Johnny's not the only one who's overloaded with information in this movie.
Yeah, that is... I mean, this requires... I don't think that we can do this movie justice until, we watch it 10 times.
We probably should have done this a two-parter. First examination, second examination.
A rewatch. This is what we caught. That is indeed Dolph Lundgren.
Confirmed. Well, hello, and welcome back to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex. As you can tell, as always, I'm joined by my buddy Julio, co-host, co-friend. I still haven't thought of anything zippy to say here in the beginning. We are here today. You know, when you wind down a year and there's a new year on the horizon, and, you know, it's kind of like the holiday thing of you just say fuck it with your diet because, you know, a new year's coming up, a fresh start's coming. So with our month of December for the Contrarians, we said fuck it, just throwing the diet to the wayside. We're going with the Keanu Reeves 1-2 punch.
Yeah. How did we get here?
I don't know.
It's like we did it on a past episode. I know that the IMDb journey is partly to blame because we got
that's what spawned it. Yes,
right. And then there's some guys from a podcast called Spit and Polish that threw the name Johnny Mnemonic in the conversation, kind of irresponsibly, I believe. Now that we've seen the movie, just
osmosis. Yeah. Absorbing us into the internet, much like Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah, I mean the gauntlet was thrown in.
Thrown it was.
We picked it up and plugged it into our brains.
Before what episode are we on?
74.
74. So 75, New Year's Day will be Speed, and we will cross that bridge when we come to it.
We'll speed through it.
Not unlike Sandra Bullock flooring it over the incomplete highway. We're
mentioning Speed so that you don't lose faith on this show. Because 74, it's gotta be rough.
It's a trek, and we are here today to discuss Johnny Mnemonic, the 1995 Keanu's follow-up to Speed. You know, he was on top of the world after ridding the cinematic universe of Dennis Hopper, at least momentarily.
It's like, how do you follow Speed up?
Well,
not with Speed 2. He said no to that.
No, that was Jason Patric, right?
Yes.
Speed 2, Cruise Control.
Bad decisions being made everywhere in Hollywood.
The family tree of this conversation is not a good one. But Johnny Mnemonic, 1995 summer release, starring the numerous times mentioned Keanu Reeves. This is a movie that was made for the cyber age. And
the age we live in right now.
We're apparently 3 years away from what this is going to be.
I am so excited. In 3 years, just... to be
all
living
bets are
there.
off.
Well, actually, I was wondering if maybe we fucked up the timeline by electing Trump. I don't know if we made sure that this was going to come to pass, or if we disrupted it. The movie didn't really give me an answer. Because on one hand,
we need a mnemonic courier for his 300 gigabytes of tweets.
Yeah, because on one hand, this is a future where people are technologically savvy. It's almost a leap to think that we'd be there in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, the world's gone to hell.
Yep.
So 50-50, I think that...
Well, my biggest concern is that we're going to revert back to CRT monitors, the way that they have no flat screen or plasma TVs in this movie.
And VCRs.
Well, that I can handle. I've got you've seen my collection. I've got a hefty amount of VHSs.
I cut ties. I can't hoard.
I think if I come across Johnny Mnemonic on VHS in a thrift store, I'm gonna have to pull the trigger on it at some point. But
that's the only way to own it. I think that it...
or Laserdisc. All right, so let's get to the gravy here. This is the Contrarians. We're kicking off Johnny Mnemonic with, as always, our first portion of the podcast, which is Contrarians Corner. Humorously, or not humorous to us, jokingly referred to as #CC from time to time.
Just by us. I don't think anybody else calls it #CC.
I think if we took a poll, that'd be the one. That's the one thing people would want removed from our podcast.
In the year 2021, #CC will be trending.
It'll
Don't worry.
be over. So for this movie, Johnny Mnemonic stands at a stinky green splotch of 14%. It's down there in the doldrums with some of the other ones we've done. Pretty sure Paul Blart's higher than that. But for the intents and purposes of this, for this first portion here, we will be raging against the Rotten Tomatoes machine, as we like to say. If you want to know what we really think about this movie, stick around to the second half, which will be real talk. Pretty sure that's going to be longer than the first portion here.
And easier.
Yes.
Sometimes Contrarians Corner is a breeze. Sometimes it's a struggle. And not to spoil real talk, but this was kind of a struggle, just taking notes, and we'll see. I mean, I have some ideas, but anyway, we are going to make it sound fresh. But before that, here's some rotten quotes from the Rotten Tomatoes website, and not many quotes. I think overall they were listing about 30 reviews, but most of them were quoteless. So yeah, they couldn't even bother.
They didn't want to put their name to it.
They just threw the green splotch at the screen and tapped out. But here's a few. Mike Clark from USA Today, he says, "You can have a better time title scanning Johnny Pics in an alphabetical video guide than you can enduring the latest Blade Runner knockoff, Johnny Mnemonic." Bringing Blade Runner to the forefront. I mean, Blade Runner is the 80s. At some point, it needs to be revamped. I mean, it just happened.
Yeah, I was about to say. I was given that movie for my birthday, and I still haven't watched it.
You can wait. It's okay. Dennis Schwartz from Uzuzu's World Movie Reviews. He just says, a cheesy cyberpunk thriller. Michael DeQuina from themoviereport.com says, Reeves showcases his considerable thespian skills in a climatic monologue about room service. And see, Michael DeQuina, that's where you go wrong, because that's the high point of the movie.
He wants the club sandwich. He wants the cold Mexican beer.
He wants an Oscar.
He does.
That's his Oscar clip. And finally, Brian J. Arthurs from Beach Reporters, Southern California says, should have called it Johnny Mnemonic.
Weak.
Low-hanging fruit. Come on.
All right. So, to kick off Johnny Mnemonic, I felt, to bring us up to speed, the easiest way would to be reading the first two paragraphs from the Wikipedia plot synopsis.
Oh, I thought you were going to read the opening scroll, the Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. We do get an opening scroll.
That's a movie in itself.
It is. It's a short film.
Yeah. It's like previously in Johnny Mnemonic.
And it's catching us up on decades worth of backstory. The year is 2021. President Trump is in his second reign as president.
Emperor Trump.
Yeah, that would be a second term. I had watched one the other day where Nixon gets elected to his third term as president. That would be the real horror story. So what I'm going to do is, just to bring us up to where we are, go ahead and start off reading just a little bit of the plot synopsis on the Wikipedia page. Now, if you're a longtime Contrarians listener, you'll know the only other time we did this was for Smoking Aces. So I hope that gives you insight into how intricate and well thought and thought-provoking that this story is. In 2021, Johnny is a mnemonic courier with a data storage device implanted in his brain, allowing him to discreetly carry information too sensitive to transfer across the net, the virtual reality equivalent of the internet. While lucrative, the implant has cost Johnny his childhood memories, and he seeks to have the implant removed to regain his memories. His handler, Ralphie, assigns him one more job that would cover the cost of the operation, which is extremely expensive, sending Johnny to Beijing to collect the latest information. Johnny is told the information exceeds his current memory capacity of 80 gigabytes, but he acquires a compression unit that effectively doubles the amount he can hold. 80 gigabytes is...
It's like my phone
yeah,
right now.
It's half of my phone. God bless. So we are going to regress at some point. He meets with the client, a group of frantic scientists who tell him that they want him to carry 320 gigabytes of memory. Johnny accepts this, knowing that the overflow of data will be uploaded directly into his brain, which can cause psychological damage and death if not removed within a few days. Johnny uploads the data to his storage, with the scientist selecting 3 random images from a television screen to use as an encryption key. Just as the scientists are about to send the key to the data's receiver in Newark, New Jersey, they are massacred by the Yakuza. Johnny manages to escape with a portion of the encryption key.
Now let's go to real talk.
So that kicks us off. Johnny, it is what it says. He has a storage unit in his brain where, the government implants secrets. Yeah, Johnny is, he's Randy Quaid from Independence Day. He's a conspiracy theorist that said the aliens put these things in his brain.
And it's true.
It is true. But,
But sexy. He's Randy Quaid, but sexy.
One thing they didn't explore here that I was kind of disappointed about was this opening scene. You kind of get a hint that Johnny is this is a business to him. This is his job doing this. So he's got a nice suit. He's a straight-laced businessman. But also there's a little bit of a tease of a master of disguise type element, which isn't completely fleshed out because he escapes this battle between these scientists and the Yakuza, and he flees through the hotel dressed up as I don't know what. A French car driver, perhaps? A French race car driver?
I mean, it's the year 2021, so it could be anything. We just don't have the necessary context.
That's
for
true.
us. I truly believe this movie was made in the year 2021 and then sent back in time.
Via a mnemonic courier.
Yes, as a warning.
It's the Princess Leia plea that's uploaded into R2-D2.
Right. The data was corrupted, though. Therefore, there's some stuff that's just missing, and that's why we can't quite understand all of it. But I bless Reeves because, obviously, he read the script, and he could tell that there was just bucket loads of information being thrown at us every minute. And so he does what he can to help us. That includes adding pauses in his dialogue just to allow us to digest everything that's going on.
Well, I think it adds to the robotic nature of his brain.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that's how he justified it to the director.
Mm-hmm.
But then really he was doing it just for the audience. It's like, I need to slow this down. Even if it means that Dolph Lundgren doesn't show up to like an hour into the movie.
And gets second billing and is apparently the villain. God bless. But yeah, he realized I need to spoon feed this to people or they're going to be lost. They already just read War and Peace to kick this son of a bitch off, so we need to get right into it. The Yakuza have some fucking awesome weapons. They have, just standard run-of-the-mill guns, but they have this
laser whip.
Yeah, it's got handles on each side, so it's kind of like a piano wire that you see in the old mob movies, but it's made of like lightsaber material, so it just cuts through people. It's fucking awesome.
2021, I'm ordering one of those on Amazon.
We're going back to VHS, but goddamn it, we got laser whips.
You got to take the wins with the losses. So
it's true.
No, I'm glad that finally
if Trump invents the laser whip, this will all have been worth it.
Re-election right away.
Third term.
I'm glad that somebody finally brought the Yakuza to prominence. They're
especially
kind of
in the sci-fi realm.
Yeah, I mean, what was the last time? Are they the bad guys in the second Wolverine movie? I think
it's possible.
And even then, they don't really
block that out of my head.
They don't come across as particularly impressive. Here, they're a constant threat.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned the second Wolverine because that has Ken Watanabe in it, and much like Ken Watanabe, my mouth was not closed for the duration of this movie. So Johnny's on the run now. Johnny's got a problem and he's out of control. He flees to Newark, which is, I believe it's billed as the last free city.
Yes.
That's not under some sort of tyrannical reign of any sort. And his dealer or handler, what was he referred to in
Creepy Man Prime, Hugo.
His handler, yeah. Udo Kier.
Hugo.
Udo Kier. Piercing eyes always, but yeah, always
making you
creep.
Uncomfortable from the other side of the screen.
Just looking through the screen directly into your soul.
He's like, he's looking at you and going, I know why I'm here. I got paid. What's your excuse? Well, I have a podcast, sir.
And he's talking Johnny into coming meeting up with it. He runs some sort of really weird underbelly club. and Johnny is now starting to realize that whatever's in his head, he's kind of like Ryan Gosling in Driver. He doesn't give a shit what you're doing. He just wants to get in and get out. But he's starting to realize that there's probably some serious shit in his brain.
Yeah, and for all his professionalism, he has a little bit of a wild side, because really he just overloaded his brain.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the movie, later we get the excellent Henry Rollins just spelling out the message of the movie for us. But really, the movie is about overload of information, learning too much. What happens when you just do too much to your brain? And that's exactly what Keanu does. He has the 80 gig iPhone in his head, and he just downloads.
He's got an iPhone 4 in his head.
Right, and he downloads twice that amount of information blindly too.
He jailbreaks his iPhone. He wants to run Android on his iPhone, pretty much.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, you can't get away with it for too long. So he has a 24-hour deadline before his brain just turns to mush.
And at this point, he just wants it out. He's like, I want out. I want to get this done. I'm 2 days away from retirement. I just want to get out of here.
It's Robert Duvall in Falling Down.
Yes. Oh, God bless. Pharmacon has a vested interest in this. They are a global pharmacological company that has invested high stakes in this data that's being transported in Johnny's head. The executive, Takahashi, is he our antagonist, or would the antagonist... Because, we'll get to Dolph Lundgren. I think he's just like the ghost of Christmas past. He's just kind of a spirit that flows throughout the movie. So it would either be Takahashi or Shinji from the Yakuza that would be our antagonist.
Well, I think that just like life, there are many antagonists. There are many things throwing obstacles at you. So yeah, you have the big pharma guy, who looks kind of like a serious version of Jackie Chan, especially when you get into the action sequences. And then you have the main Yakuza guy,
Shinji,
who has the cool laser whip.
Yes.
It must be really expensive because he's the only one that has one of those.
But he knows how to use it quite expertly.
Right. And then down the line you have Lundgren, and then a whole bunch of background characters that they could go either way depending on where they're leaning and how much they've had to drink.
So the Yakuza wants at it also. They understand the value in this information that's being transported in Johnny's head. Takahashi, almost immediately gets buyer's remorse of hiring the Yakuza. So kind of jumping ahead, we'll loop back around, but he ends up hiring, referred to in the movie as a street preacher, but basically a robotic Christian bearded Dolph Lundgren named Carl for hire.
He's amazing. Not that the movie needed him to be amazing. There's already a lot of cool stuff going on, but when Lundgren shows up like an hour into the movie, it's just... And I don't think that we don't get opening credits, so you didn't know that it was coming, and I didn't know it was coming. And then just the original Punisher is on screen with long hair and
Frank Castle,
a cross.
It's quite possible that this is what happened to his Punisher character. He just lived in the sewer for 30 years afterwards.
Found religion.
Yes. And his weapon of choice is this giant it's the Jesus jackhammer. It's this giant, almost sword-like weapon, but it turns into a crucifix at the top.
And then he likes to nail people to the wall.
Very biblical style killings of his victims.
Early contender for the Embries.
But he's also very guilty of the sin of... pride, because he is consistently stealing body parts and being rebuilt within just to stay alive, to be immortal. He believes he is the savior.
He does say Jesus has come at some point.
He does have his sheep herding wand as well that he walks around with. Can't forget about that. But that's we jumped a little bit ahead. So winding back, when Johnny gets to his handler, Ralphie, long story short, finds out that he's working with the Yakuza, and he's trying to set up Johnny. What they want to do is cryogenically freeze his brain, just cut his head off, and fucking put his head in a little briefcase and carry it around until they can get out what they need.
This is, because this is an obscure movie, sort of. I don't think that many people, when you say Keanu Reeves, you think The Matrix, you think Speed, even
The Lake House.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say Devil's Advocate. Damn you, but. You don't jump to Johnny Mnemonic right away. And if you were watching this movie, especially because you've already gone through one action scene where Keanu did okay. You're expecting him to kick ass and save himself, right? They had him dead to rights, but you kind of think that it's Keanu Reeves. So of course, time's going to slow down and he's going to pull out some sick kung fu
Johnny
moves.
Utah.
Yeah, but instead, he gets saved by a character that I think really makes this movie.
Jane, played by Dina Meyer, who, quick backstory on her, it's about the extent of what we get, because again, you got to keep up with this. There's only so much time we have with this movie. She worked at this club as a bodyguard. She was like cybernetically engineered, I want to say.
She's got some enhancements.
Yeah, but she's kind of fallen apart and breaking down and isn't as useful as she once was. So now the other women at the club are very disparaging towards her, and Ralphie treats her like a piece of meat.
They make fun of her like the Mean Girls and Mean Girls.
This is true. So she's had enough. She doesn't really know what the fuck's going on, but she knows the difference between decency and filth, as Kevin Von Erich would say. So she breaks in and saves Keanu and is basically haggling him for his life. He's got a knife to his throat, and it's like, I'll get you out of here for 20 grand. Or no, he offers 20 grand, and then she says 50. And he says, done. And then they break out, and
he says it just like that too.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, Keanu gets a gun and holds Ralphie and Shinji hostage, or not hostage, but just a gunpoint while they take off. Locks them up, and then Shinji is on the chase after them, but he just fucking offs Udo Kier in the meantime.
Because why not?
Because we got to get that laser whip some use. We got to see how fucking devastating it is. So he like almost Zorros him, where he cuts like a Z out of him. It's fucking crazy.
His body just slides off in 3 neat pieces.
And
just
then,
ready for barbecue.
And then you can hear cut, and then Udo Kier go, ha ha, cut me my check.
But yeah, Dinah Meyer, I would say she's more of a badass than Keanu Reeves, at least in this movie.
Yeah, easily.
When you get to the action scenes, you can tell that she can handle herself much better than Keanu. And Keanu is probably just restricted by that suit that he's wearing, plus all the extra gigs in his brain.
Yeah, I was about to say his head's weighing him down.
Never happened in a Keanu Reeves movie.
This is where we are introduced. We kind of get a brief introduction to Ice-T, J-Bone earlier, but this is where we really get a feel for J-Bone, and the Low Techs is the name of the group. And I wouldn't really say they're a gang. It's more just, it's their, not even territory, it's just their home.
Well, they're the resistance. And you know what's crazy? I actually looked this up as we were watching the movie. And that was my mistake, because I missed like 20 gigs of information while I was looking this up on my phone. But this was released in 1995. Tank Girl was released in 1995. In 1995, Ice-T led 2 revolutionary movements. That is the peak of his career, probably.
One would have to say, I think I was wrong when I called out that, who did I say was in this shot? The police chief from...
Andrew Breyer?
Yeah, I might have been wrong about that, but I'm going to check in.
You think he was just visiting the set? And they just, hey, come on.
I don't know. It looked like a young Andrew Breyer, but I'm not entirely sure. We do have a cameo coming up later, though. That is a good one for the Contrarians faithful. So... yeah, this group, they inhabit the last free city, and essentially they're not going to fuck with people until people fuck with them.
Right.
So they don't open fire or anything. They just tell the Yakuza, slow your roll, let these people pass through in peace. And Keanu, again, this is just adding to confusion and more shots of him, almost breathless and looking around, not really knowing what's going on, and holding his temples. So
having brain flashes.
Yes. So the Low Techs let Jane and Johnny through. They go into the sewers or subway, whatever it is. And this is where Dina Meyer shows some humanistic decency and just letting Keanu take a nap.
Well, he looked tired. He'd had a rough day. He had been almost decapitated, and he'd just been carrying that heavy load.
Not to mention the fucking travel from Beijing to Newark, New Jersey. I'm surprised they still have a red eye in 2021, but it's good to know that travel is not going to be impeded.
Well, it's a world of wonders in 3 years. This is here where obviously now she's picked her side. Now she's Team Keanu, and I like the subtle difference in her appearance once she is with the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because before, she looked kind of like a strung-out junkie. But now, once she's with Keanu, she kind of cleans up. He wakes up from the nap, and she looks
Her hair is down and looks more natural.
It's like she washed her face. And then they have a few bonding scenes as they travel. And I really appreciated just the fact that, storytelling, it's all about contrast, how you move a story forward. So what better contrast than having Demer playing a human being to contrast Keanu playing a robot?
Especially, kind of stealing a page from the Avatar book of not interspecies relationships, but just, two people from two different walks of life that you wouldn't think have much in common. And Keanu, the mnemonic courier, and
With
Dina
his
Meyer,
suit.
the ragtag bodyguard from whatever that bar is that they worked at.
Suffering from some debilitating disease. But then again, so does he now. So
it weaves in and out pretty seamlessly of a sci-fi thriller and a quirky, summer indie comedy flick. So you never know what you're going to get.
You give this script to Nancy Myers or Nora Ephron, and you would have a completely different movie.
Noah Baumbach would do wonders with this script.
Ben Stiller as Johnny Mnemonic.
They break into a discount computer store as Johnny's trying to see what he can do to get on the net. So the net is the exclusive internet. It's basically, it's the Patreon of the internet. You got to pay to use the net. And he's trying to navigate his way through, and he gets these parts he needs, and it's virtual reality. He puts on a headset and he gets into the net, and we get interwoven cuts of him with the headgear. And I don't think it's played for laughs, but it is kind of funny, like when you watch people do virtual reality stuff and they're moving kind of very erratically, and they're not in control. So at first,
in control.
I was about to say, at first it's kind of funny because it looks like that, but then you realize Keanu knows exactly what he's doing. So it's more just cool to see him pick up these pieces that we don't see. But then we go to the VR and we see what he sees. It's
it
Lawnmower
is
Man-esque.
Yes. Well, and I was thinking, I had never known until now that Steven Spielberg completely ripped off this movie when he did Minority Report, because all those hand movements where it looks like he's directing like an orchestra or something, and that's just basically what Tom Cruise does in Minority Report when he's scrubbing the image for clues. It's Keanu was doing it 10 years prior,
and Spielberg was in the theater taking notes.
Yes, he was downloading all that information to his private brain hard drive.
I'm just picturing him in the movie theater watching this, and then he takes out his little headlamp that he reads with the night, and he gets his little notepad out, hands moving like orchestra.
Virtual reality. I also think probably the most delightful moment in the entire movie is when he first gets in there and he starts navigating this virtual reality sea, and then you see an icon of a planet, and because he wants to make a long distance phone call or something, so his hand goes for the planet and enlarges it, but when he touches the planet, it goes boop. It's just so innocent.
Jane is on lookout, though, and the Yakuza is hot on their trail, and she says it's time to get out, and they have already implanted a virus into the data in his head, so as soon as he's starting to make any sort of headway, he gets shut down and blacked out. But she says it's time to go. I know someone that can help us out. So enter Henry Rollins, who we do see for a brief moment a bit earlier in the film, but this is the formal introduction to Spider, who is a lot like the Kevin Smith character in A Good Day to Die Hard.
Pretty much, except hunkier.
Oh, dude, Henry Rollins is in rare form here. I mean, his looks have improved in a sense with like the silver lining in his hair and stuff, but
he's aged gracefully.
He has aged gracefully, but here it's just like prime Rollins, big traps, just
it's a prime cut of Rollins.
It is. And like I said, he blends in perfectly. I could buy this as 2021 because he just looks like a bartender from Austin.
He has the tattoo, the glasses.
Just a plain shirt tucked into some jeans. And again, we may have a few early contenders for the Embry in this film because Henry Rollins, not necessarily known for his acting, but he comes to play here. He packed a lunch.
And it's not just a cameo. I mean, this is not the movie trying to be cute by casting Henry Rollins in a big role. He gets a workload of exposition to go through, and thank God it's Henry Rollins because that's how you pay attention.
Yes.
he gets to finally tell us what's in Keanu's head.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I would have been able to handle it if I didn't have somebody that was not just good to look at, but good to deliver the exposition.
And it gives us a break. Not that we're necessarily tired of Jane and Johnny yet, but it gives them a break, some time to sit down and just kind of relax and listen. And, it's a shame that Keanu doesn't say, but what does it all mean?
He's too tired.
He says it with his eyes.
Right. Yeah, sometimes all the acting is just behind those pupils. But it's also nice to just get to somebody that knows what's going on and is not afraid to share it with the audience.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he comes in right at the time where I probably would have just disconnected from the movie. I would have gotten a little frustrated with the fact that I still don't know what's going on. It's fine if Keanu doesn't know what's going on, but I want to know. So it's really cool because Henry Rollins comes in. He's exuding charisma. He's very charming. He fixes up Dana Meyer, who's having some sort of attack, like an episode, and then he tries to fix Keanu Reeves, and then we find out that once again, like he would be in many times in his career, he's the chosen one.
Yes, and the reason that Jane is having a hard time is she does suffer from nerve attenuation syndrome, known as NAS. They call it the black shakes in the movie. Just seems to be from the deteriorating circumstances they live in. It looks like seizures are a part of it, and
Rollins comes out and says it's because she uses the internet too much.
Yes.
He says information overload, and all I can think of is all those teenagers browsing the net with like 10 windows open, and then also playing on their phone and having their PS4 on at the same time. Eventually, you get the shakes.
This is true. It's like that Pokemon commercial that gave all those kids in Japan seizures.
Exactly, like that. This is a movie from 1995, and they already knew that where we were headed.
This is where we're heading. The information overload. We're all just gonna have to revert back to
There's a reason why it's just VCRs in the future.
And
3 years.
CRT monitors. So this disorder, NAS for short, what's in Keanu's brain is the cure for NAS, meaning unlimited internet, unlimited power, the ultimate unplugging the router and plugging it back in.
But with a firewall that will keep all the pop-ups and all the viruses away. It's a safe internet.
But it's in danger because the word of this movie is seepage. We get seepage a litany of times in this film.
Probably as gross as it sounds.
And Rollins explains basically the data is seeping into out of the hard drive into his brain, and it's going to end up corrupting all of it.
Right, and that's Keanu's fault.
It's probably killing him.
It's Keanu's fault because he
put too much dip on his chip.
Yeah. he cracked that iPhone 4.
He did. He jailbroke it, and now he's mad, and he's trying to take it back to the Apple store, and they're like, whoa, get out. Rollins, what does Keanu say that he needs to see a Dr. Allcom? He saw something on the net about a Dr. Allcom.
Oh, yeah. And
which this is like, the word of the day type of sets off alarms in Henry Rollins' head. So during all this is when we're getting our cuts of Dolph Lundgren getting suited up for battle and
making his way
at the worship at the altar. And what they go to leave and he just like steps out. He's like, "Hello, sinners."
The power of Christ compels you.
Yeah, he says something and Henry Rollins just runs him over and they're like, "Who the fuck was that?" You don't want to know, man.
The mob killed his family years ago. He's become crazy since then.
So then they go to some undisclosed location off the coast of Alaska, like at the end of X-Men 2, and you don't really know where they are.
And then Henry Rollins like takes his glasses off and is like, "Hello, I'm Dr. Allcom."
He explains that Dr. Allcom is, the football. It's the emergency status word that if you hear that, you need to get to this fucking bunker and pray for the best. What is even good? It's like a hospital or some shit that they're at.
It looks like some sort of refugee camp where there's a bunch of people connected to wires. And
so Rollins is going to perform emergency surgery, takes in Johnny. Just Johnny. That is, we skipped over that incredible line. He's like, "Who the fuck are you?" "I'm Johnny." "Johnny who?" "Just Johnny. Keanu Reeves." Johnny Mnemonic.
Not Johnny English.
Not Johnny Football. Johnny. Just Johnny. He's going to perform emergency surgery on him. He says that without the encryption key, he's not going to be able to do too much. He explains that he can do it the old-fashioned way, cutting open his head, pulling it out of there. He's telling him you might lose some, motor function. Your memory will be about 3 minutes old. And then Keanu's like, fuck this, and gets up and rips all the wires and headset off of himself. And then fucking Dolph Lundgren just reappears, and he's like, hello, sinners!
I like that this movie, basically, it shatters your expectations because you're looking for the Keanu Reeves arc. Here, he's given this choice where he can get this information extracted, and that'll probably end up either killing him or severely disabling him. But that means that people like Dynamite get the cure. The entire world benefits. He just basically sacrifices for the world. And he
a
says,
la the Matrix Revolutions.
Exactly. But he says, fuck that. Right? And so you think that the end of the movie is going to basically involve him finally making that sacrifice. He grows as a human being, and by the end of the movie, he'll be that kind of person that doesn't care if he's going to die or be severely disabled. All he cares is that this cure goes out. But the movie subverts your expectations because Keanu gets away without having to make that choice. That is brilliant screenwriting, because by now you're used to that kind of storytelling. So the movie needs to keep you hooked a different way.
And as soon as he leaves, Henry Rollins is crucified by Carl, Dolph Lundgren. And it's an interesting shot because the first hand, Lundgren puts a knife through. Henry Rollins just kind of no-sells it.
I thought the exact same thing.
And then while Jane and Johnny are running away, he goes for the second hand and stabs it. And he must have hit like every nerve in his hand, because he just lets out the Braveheart.
He gets a close-up too.
He does. And it doesn't like go into the blackness of his mouth.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, so many different
void.
options. Do you think that for the first hand he was just keeping it together because he didn't want to cry out in front of Keanu and Dynamite? He wanted them to be
He didn't want
gone.
Johnny to think he was a little bitch.
or to come back to save him, which
Yes.
honestly he should have known better. Keanu was out for himself, so there's no way that he was coming back for him.
No.
Or it could be that just he doesn't have any nerve endings on one side of the hand. Maybe one hand is robotic. I mean, there's plenty of people with mechanical limbs in this world.
It's fair. The last thing he tells Johnny and Jane is you got to get back to the Low-Techs and you got to meet Jones. Jones now becomes the fucking central focus of the rest of this movie. We're approaching the third act, and
He becomes the seepage.
Jones seeps into the conscience of this film. We go back to the camp of the Low-Techs, and this is where we get our crossover from Empire Records, Coyote Shivers. I don't even know if he has a name, but he's one of the guards there with, I believe, Javier Bardem's cousin, Frank Bardem.
Frank Bardem, the one with the lisp.
Yeah, he has a very unique way of talking, very memorable way of talking, much
Frank
like
the
Javier
lisp
Bardem.
Bardem.
He's his cousin from Tupelo, Mississippi, that they see each other every 5 years at the Bardem family reunion.
Bardem got him the one audition, and then said, "From here on, you're on your own."
Yeah, well, I'll do this one favor for you. and
Call
then
it.
call
Heads, Johnny Mnemonic. Tails, Speed.
My dad no longer owes your mom anything. Yeah, but Coyote Shivers, it was just kind of a lark to see him in there, because anyone from Empire Records, as you can tell, we have a goddamn award named the Embry after Ethan Embry in that movie. So anytime we can revisit that, we'll gladly take that.
I mean, I would never have thought that we were going to see Coyote Shivers on any movie we would do in this podcast. So that was great, especially because, like you said, we're heading into the third act of the movie. And this movie, as good as it is just battered me, and I'm sure it just kicked your ass too, because trying to keep up with it was a challenge. I was not expecting such a mental workout from a Keanu Reeves movie,
but it put me in the frame of mind that Johnny's in with the information overload. Like, I can sympathize with this character, which is a brilliant tactical move.
But it's also
in manipulating your audience.
Yeah, it's so brilliant too, because that's his follow-up to Speed. So people were already, they were just set up for that kind of expectation. Oh, it's gonna be another Speed, and then they get hit with all this information and this techno
You thought
thriller.
Speed was intricate. Buckle up, Buttercup.
This is harder than driving a bus.
Coyote Shivers, unfortunately, is not with us too long. The Yakuza come in and take him out. Actually, they use the laser wire to cut his head off.
So he gets a cool death.
He does get a cool death. We meet Jones, played by Echo the Dolphin, and
I don't think, much like Henry Rollins when he gets that first hand crucified. You're no selling this. It's a dolphin. Jones is a dolphin.
Yes, we get a lot of build up to Jones to the point where Julio turned to me and said, well, at this point, it has to be a big name actor or actress.
I was bracing myself for Gandolfini or Tommy Lee Jones. That would have been great. Tommy Lee Jones playing Jones.
Oh, God.
Not as great as the dolphin playing Jones. That was, name another movie where
the big reveal is a mammal.
A hacker dolphin.
Yeah, and he's got like fucking Mad Max gear on and shit. He's ready to go, but apparently he was used in the Navy for his decrypting skills.
He would intercept submarine transmissions.
So their plan is to hook Johnny up to Cerebro and have this dolphin crack into what's in his brain and get it free. So that process starts going off without a hitch. But then, like you mentioned, in the bowels of the fortress, the Yakuza are starting to infiltrate. They start off by first fucking taking off poor Coyote Shivers, Burko. His head was gone. And then it just turns into all-out chaos and pandemonium with a gunfight.
So have we mentioned that Ice-T is here?
Yeah. I thought we mentioned him at the beginning. I'm sorry, we didn't pull it back around. That Ice-T, J-Bone, is the...
He's like the caretaker of the dolphin, his trainer?
But he's like the leader of the Low-Techs.
That too. I mean, he's...
I guess he's, Scott Summers to the Professor X. Jones as being Professor X, which for all we know, that could have been Patrick Stewart in a dolphin outfit. Just meh.
Those 1995 effects, they fool you. If they can do the virtual reality tour the way that they did, then they can do anything. And also, can you imagine? I did think about this while we were watching it, and I mean, right now it looks good, but can you imagine being in 1995 in a movie theater and experiencing this movie for the first time on the big screen? Just you see Keanu hook up, and then suddenly you have that whole sequence where he goes boop on the world, and then he's just playing, he's directing the orchestra, Minority Report style. That has to have blown some minds. It's
a goddamn shame it was a TriStar film and not a Universal, because I guarantee you that it would have gotten its own Universal 3D ride.
Oh yeah. Ride the Mnemonic.
Oh, God, would have been perfect.
They infect you with the disease at the beginning of the ride, and then by the end of the ride...
The big animatronic Keanu at the end. The music is the ultimate weapon.
Seepage has stopped.
Get the gimmick tee, I prevented seepage at Universal Studios.
Udo Kier at the end, shaking your hand. The real one.
Thanks for coming out. Takahashi's there, which again, he's paid 2 hitmen to be there, but god damn it, if you need a job done, you do it yourself. So he's there to kill Johnny and get his hard drive out of his brain.
I think that there's an entire movie that was probably going to be the sequel or sort of spin-off, sidequel, that is just Takahashi's journey. Because every time we check in on him, he's made considerable progress. And
what's fascinating, though, is you can see his office from the Low-Tech hideout maybe about 6 or 7 miles. So some shit happened in between there, and I'm curious what like the side tracks and the side quests were.
Right,
it's like GTA when you don't follow the main mission, you go off to the side to get your little rewards.
Well, I keep thinking of that Zelda game where you have the little fairy following you.
Zelda sucks. I don't know.
Oh, fuck you. That is, oh my God, we could go on for 30 minutes and just that statement. But no, because he has this little holographic woman that every now and then will go, Takahashi, listen. And she will just drop some hints about what he should do next. And he never listens.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the redheaded woman that's the conscience of the film, because it's not, I think it's kind of like the end of Lost in Translation. It's not up for us as podcasters to explain to you what this is. It's up for you as a viewer to come up to your own conclusion.
All I know is that she has the good sense not to reveal that Keanu is holding the cure to the disease that killed Takahashi's daughter until the very end. When Takahashi's about to kill Keanu, then she says, hey, listen, there was that disease, Keanu has the cure, and the company you work for actually killed your daughter by preventing the release of this cure.
Correct.
If she had said this at the beginning of the movie, we would have missed out on all these awesome adventures. So I'm glad that she waited.
So she's the conscience of the audience because she knows what we need.
Right.
Yeah.
And when we need it. We all needed to go through this whole journey so that we could all grow as people, except for Keanu, because by the end he's the exact same person.
To the surprise of the viewing audience and to Takahashi himself, it turns out it's not really a good idea to try to double-cross the Yakuza, and he gets shot by Shinji numerous times in the back, and then he turns around and says, "Oh, shit, Shinji."
He doesn't even get a cool death like Kyoto Shivers.
No.
He doesn't get the laser whip.
He does not, and Shinji pulls out the aforementioned laser whip and gets into a hand-to-hand scuffle there with Johnny Mnemonic, and they battle. This fortress of the Lotex is suspended high above ground, and they somehow battle over a ledge where a bottom gives out. I'm not entirely sure, but they're fighting over the New Jersey harbor.
Some awesome green screen shot.
And then we did mention that Coyote Shivers was decapitated by the laser whip. So you would think something like that would be cool if it just happened one time, but that's where you're wrong, because Johnny Mnemonic, they do it again here, and you would think it's kind of flat for the bad guy to die in a way that you've already seen, but it somehow makes it cooler that he dies by his own sword.
It's called setup and payoff. After he kills Coyote Shivers, the only thing that will make up for this, other than Coyote Shivers himself killing him back, would be Keanu Reeves killing him in the same manner as he killed Coyote Shivers.
That's like the end of Expendables 2 when Sly kills JCVD just the way JCVD killed Liam Hemsworth.
Spoiler alert!
Man, fuck you if you haven't seen that movie yet. But a tie-in, much like in the Expendables 1 and 2, out of nowhere comes Dolph Lundgren again.
Well, I mean, we knew he was coming. We just forgot. We both literally said, "Oh yeah, that's right. He was still a loose end."
So he comes in, "Hello, sinners," and he starts swinging his cane, and
he knows that the movie's about to be over, so he's
feeding Keanu, and his comeback is not quick, or not long, I should say. He gets in his shit, and then I don't even remember. Oh yeah, he fucking
he gets his ass kicked by a dolphin.
That's right. Echo focuses in on him and shoots like telepathic laser. He somehow triggers a satellite to shoot radioactive waves at him that sets him on fire.
Right, because he has, I guess, all his cybernetic implants are making him vulnerable to dolphin power.
So Echo uses the power of the internet to kill Carl from the inside out, which, again, just a quick sidebar. You have this futuristic cyborg played by Dolph Lundgren, who looks like Jesus and is a very biblical person, and you pick the name Carl. Some may think that's a questionable decision, because Carl is usually a guy that, fixes your car or something, but, some would say like Ezekiel or Joseph or Adam or something like that, but no, Carl.
I mean,
and you know what? You're going to remember it.
You don't pick the name that you're born with, and I appreciate Lundgren's just commitment, and he didn't change his name to something more biblical just to go with the gimmick. Instead, he's like, "Well, I'm Carl. You deal with it.
If you have a problem, I will stab you with my Jesus knife." So he's done. He's burnt to a crisp. It's actually quite gross. So we hook Keanu back up to Cerebro as Takahashi gave him a remaining piece of the encryption code for the data in his head. So now Keanu has two pieces of it. So obviously the idea being that Jones will be able to unlock the third by the process of elimination. So Ice-T, J-Bone gets on wherever they're broadcasting and issues a public service announcement that, yo, that's Shizzle, listen up. We got the cure for NAS coming up.
We're about to broadcast it, so get your VCRs ready. That is, he literally says, get your VCRs ready, and I got chills, because so far this future had looked fairly cool. And unlike you, Alex, I do not look forward to going back to tapes. I like my streaming, I like my Blu-rays. I understand if we have to downgrade to VCRs for the sake of the planet, I'll do it, but I'm kind of hoping we can change the timeline a little bit.
We're going to get laser whips, though. So
that's the trade-off?
Yeah.
You lose Netflix, but you get
laser whips,
but only if you join the Yakuza.
So the NAS cure is eventually broadcast after Keanu engages in what was really a precursor to the final battle of Matrix Revolutions. It was like a sentinel battle in his own mind.
It's just basically a Pixar short film.
It is. It's, what it is the commercials for video games where it's not the actual gameplay footage, but it looks fucking awesome and makes you want to buy the game.
Right, where they get like Nathan Fillion and Andrew Brower to pretend they're characters in the video game. It is pretty amazing, and And to all of you scoffing about the animation itself, it was 1995, so calm down.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at it in context, that is pretty fucking amazing. Keanu doubles himself up.
It's one of those movies like Psycho. I'm sure at the time people were having like strokes and heart attacks in the theater, not knowing what was going on.
I go back to my point. Can you imagine being in a movie theater and you think that the movie's over because the Yakuza have been defeated, Takahashi's dead, Dolph Lundgren is burnt to a crisp. What more could happen? And then Keanu connects into a Pixar short film, and then the dolphin shows up in the animation as well. They're battling some creature, and then they pull out the final piece of the code needed to unlock
the cure to NAS.
Yeah, and the final piece is a picture of
the conscience,
Takahashi's blue woman.
And then the cure is broadcast on national television,
every screen available.
Yeah, but everyone's seeing it, so what they're showing doesn't make much sense to me, and they're showing it pretty quickly, but I think also our way of thinking will advance in the next 3 years. Our ability to comprehend and hold things.
Process information. Yeah. This movie is not going to be complicated at all for somebody in 2021. They'll watch it and fast forward and get it.
Yeah. They'll make like the made-for-TV version that's 24 minutes long and just condense it down.
No explanations, because by now you know. It's like, oh yeah, that's a laser whip.
And then Pharmacon doesn't really explode, just catches on fire and burns down, and the movie ends with J-Bone, Johnny, and Jane watching Pharmacon burn, and then, of course, gotta end it correctly, so J-Bone steps out of frame.
And Keanu and Dynamite not quite kissed. They already kissed earlier in the movie.
Yeah. Really out of nowhere.
No, it feels like it's out of nowhere, but really it's right after his Oscar clip, which somehow we completely bypassed his Oscar clip.
Oh, we did, where he wants the club sandwich and the cold Mexican beer.
That is the moment that he becomes relatable.
Yes.
That's when Johnny
He just
Mnemonic
wants a normal life.
Yeah, everybody wants room service.
And I hate to use the word precursor again, and in relation to the Matrix, but this is a precursor to the scene where, I didn't ask for this. I don't want all this. I don't want to be the one.
I just want a club sandwich. I want my laundry done.
And he said something about wanting a prostitute, a $10,000 prostitute.
We can all relate.
So
yeah, that of course makes him extremely attractive, and that's when Dynamite goes for the kiss.
That's right. So at the end here, it's just kind of a longing look into their eyes. And you can, if you turn it up loud enough, you can hear director Robert Longo say, "Ice-T, get the fuck out of the frame." Because he kind of overstays his welcome.
He takes just this quiet step backwards.
But then we roll the credits.
Directed by
Robert Longo.
Based on a short story. Written by William Gibson. Based on a short story by William Gibson.
Who has the sole screenplay credit, but almost refuses to take credit for it. He said it's not anything like what he wrote. So, sure it's not. I'm sure you had a smarter movie than this.
Yeah, Mr. Longo came up with all this confusing stuff.
The only full-length theatrical release directed by Robert Longo.
Well, what else could you do after this?
You peak.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mic drop.
He much like Ice-T at the end, he just kind of awkwardly, gracefully bowed out of the final frame.
Keanu would go on to try to top himself.
He's been chasing the dragon for 23 years now.
Chasing the Mnemonic.
Okay, that was Johnny Mnemonic.
Oh, dude, you know what happens at the end? And I don't blame you for forgetting, because I had to look at my notes. This movie, it's too much. But there's this long-running tease throughout the movie that he had to sacrifice in order to make room for them to install the hard drive.
I know where you're going. He had to sacrifice his childhood memories.
Right, and then he starts getting his memories back, and it's a Terrence Malick movie. That is so awesome.
And it shows Brad Pitt kind of peppering him in the face a few times.
Yeah, he has a tricycle, and Jessica Chastain is naked in the background. But then it cuts back without it before it reveals too much, which is good, because I honestly thought that they were going to go and just reveal that Dynamite was his sister or something.
Yeah.
But they had to restrain to just leave that up to us.
Just to let you know that he's at peace now. And so we can be at peace.
Yeah, he knows that he had a tricycle when he was a little kid.
It's true. And one of the songs on the score for this movie was called Memory Johnny Ska Yakuza Firefight. That's the name of one track.
It's track 7 in the soundtrack.
Yeah. And I really don't think there's a better way we could transition into real talk than that.
Let's go to real talk.
God bless.
Listen. You listen to me. You see that city over there? That's where I'm supposed to be. Not down here with the dogs and the garbage and the fucking last month's newspapers blowing back and forth. I've had it with them. I've had it with you. I've had it with all this. I want room service! I want the club sandwich. I want the cold Mexican beer. I want a $10,000 a night hooker! I want my shirts laundered. Like they do at the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo.
Okay, we're recording Real Talk for Johnny Mnemonic.
That first part was tough.
This
is not a good movie.
That was Mnemonic.
Yeah.
What is okay? There's nothing in this movie that has to do with the word mnemonic, right? As far as isn't like mnemonic when I'm just thinking of that episode, The Office, where you make associations that help you remember stuff.
A device such as a pattern of letters, ideas, or associations that assists in remembering something. So yeah, if he's just, I don't know, it somehow pertains to his childhood memories, but really all he's doing is just, he's got something in his brain that's pushing out his thoughts.
He's a transporter.
Yeah.
But in his brain.
He's an external hard drive.
Is it just that this is when Keanu Reeves is going over his career, Johnny Mnemonic is the mnemonic device that helps him remember which scripts not times. To choose. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I have written in my notes here, this movie is every Sega ad from the early 90s. Because it really is, with like the intermittent cuts and shit. And like that's the first thing I thought of when I saw Jones was, oh, that's fucking Echo the Dolphin. Which that may be a dated reference. Not maybe.
It definitely. People know Sonic, and that's probably about it.
Who among you remember Echo the Dolphin? I can't quite remember if I did read anything interesting on it. It has since left my brain just because my brain was fried pretty hard. Oh, yes, this. Val Kilmer was originally set to star, but left the project after he was offered the role of Batman in Batman Forever.
You could argue he picked the better
Batman
project.
Forever is better than this movie.
It's certainly more memorable.
Yeah, I shouldn't use the word better. It's more entertaining.
Yes, I will never say that it's a good movie, but it's a movie I will happily watch.
Yes.
Unlike Johnny Mnemonic.
Yes. Yeah, this doesn't even have anything fun like unhinged Tommy Lee Jones and Batman Forever.
Well, it has Dolph Lundgren playing Jesus. That's...
Yeah, but you don't even get anything from it.
Right.
He's got like fucking total 6 minutes on screen, if that.
He makes the
and
most
he's got
out of
second
it.
billing. He does. So, being that it's 14%, that means some people liked it. Did you find anybody that liked it?
Like I said, there were a lot of quoteless scores over there, so I had to dig deep because I use an app, but the app wasn't pulling the quotes, so I had to go to the Rotten Tomatoes website, and there were a couple of quotes there, and then a couple of critics that don't have a website anymore. So they were they exceeded the capacity in their hard drives, so there was seepage and the reviews disappeared. So what we have is 2 quotes from Rotten Tomatoes, and then I went to the always reliable letterboxd.com where knew there would be people that would have given this movie
my friend Justin on Twitter, when you posted that thing and I retweeted, he responded, Johnny Mnemonic, great movie. She's like, brother.
Great movie. We'll watch again. 5 stars. But okay, let's start with the Rotten Tomatoes quotes. Rob Vaux from Flipside Movie Emporium says, seriously, it's not that bad. Don't beat me. And he posted that in 2002. So it's not that he was razzle-dazzled by the special effects or just the promise of a new internet.
I can't remember what movie we did, but there was one time we did something like that it was a movie from like the early 90s, maybe late 80s, and like a review from like 2004 acted like it discovered the movie.
Hot tip.
Yeah.
Watch Empire Records. Mick LaSalle from the San Francisco Gate says, Mnemonic has a cool head. All right, man.
Shaking my head.
And now we go into Letterboxd. Patrick Pryor gave Johnny Mnemonic 3 stars and a heart. He rewatched it on May 10th, 2018. And it's a long thing. It opens with all caps, why you all wrong about Johnny Mnemonic? And then he goes on to list a whole bunch of things. But he ends with, it's time jabronis stop deriding this as some sort of legendary train wreck of jilly proportions. If you think Johnny, the most rock and roll name of all time, is bad, you don't know what a bad movie is.
Okay.
Okay, jabroni. And then 4 stars and a heart from Perry, The Thing Forsaken by God. And he says, still some of the most appealing cyberjunk ever filmed. Don't get nearly enough credit as a wonderful, weird time capsule to 90s sci-fi cinema, or as what it would look like if somebody gave Albert Peon a huge budget, fascinating cast of character actors, and an actual script. Basically invented Vaporwave. Perry, you sound like this movie.
Yeah.
I can't tell what the fuck you're saying.
I was like, my first response was, that's all fine and good, but this movie's just, that doesn't mean this movie's logical or,
Maybe, so do we need to be cyberpunks to get it? Do we need to be into the cyberpunk movement?
See, that's the thing. It's like, it's personal bias or personal preference, because there's a lot of really bad movies that I like
so
Halloween 4, Empire Records, but things that we've done on this podcast that I can explain to you why I like it. It's just I would need to sit down with one of those people and be like, explain to me what is good about this movie.
Explain seepage.
Yeah. I mean, Henry Rollins is good. Before we go any further, let me get my gimmick out of the way. Johnny Mnemonic, released on May 26th, 1995, had a budget of around $26 million for a box office return of a little bit over $52 million, so it did double its budget, so it didn't lose money. As we mentioned before, directed by Robert Longo, based on a short story by William Gibson, screenplay credited to William Gibson, starring, of course, Keanu Reeves, and with the second billing on the poster, Dolph Lundgren. Continue.
I forgot what I was saying. Oh, I was going to say, are you telling me Johnny Mnemonic is to cyberpunk as, what's that wrestling movie you like?
Ready to Rumble?
As Ready to Rumble is to wrestling?
I don't know. I would have to know if there's a lot of people in the cyberpunk community that actively hate this movie, because there's a lot of people in the wrestling community that actively hate Ready to Rumble. And speaking of which, did we talk about on the podcast yet about David Arquette getting his throat slit in that death match?
I think you might have mentioned it off, like when we're not recording.
Yeah, well, David Arquette fucked with Nick Gage, and that's what happens.
Oh yeah, because you told me, hey, we might see an uptick on Ready to Rumble downloads.
That's right.
He might dethrone our current top download.
Valley of the Dolls.
Valley of the Dolls.
But the best part was that Patricia Arquette and Tom Arnold the next day were tweeting about Patricia Arquette's an Oscar winner, and she was tweeting about a pro wrestling match involving Nick Gage, which, what the fuck? What a time to be alive. Fuck where we're going in 2021. Now is the time to be alive.
We're just mere months away from the developing of the laser whip, and then we'll peak as a civilization. It
is boring. It doesn't make sense. The acting leaves a lot to be desired from the main player, being Keanu Reeves, because Keanu's a very I always love in situations like this, like musicians and stuff, people always say they're a unique talent. You have to have certain things that complement it, which I don't agree with. I think Keanu's really good at what he does, but it seemed like he didn't have much to work with here, and like this movie's so flat and emotionless to begin with that when at your helm is someone who can sometimes come across as flat and emotionless, does not help it.
I would say he probably didn't get much help from behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever he was going for, because let's assume that he was going for something. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and he was going for something with this performance. Whatever he was going for, it does not translate. It just looks like he can barely remember his lines. And, okay, well, maybe that's what he's going for, because his memory is supposed to be fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely someone that there's a method to his madness, but again, it's confusing, and his acting creates more questions of, okay, is he a robot?
Right.
Yeah.
That's where the director needs to step in and say, no. You're a regular human being. The story is confusing enough as it is.
Tenured director Robert Longo directed such things as This'll Kill Ya, the episode of Tales from the Crypt, and REM, The One I Love video short.
And then Mnemonic just broke him and said, that's it, I'm done.
You can certainly tell. This is like in the past 5 podcasts, I think I've referenced Marcus Nispel once before. I think that's more than anyone's ever referenced Marcus Nispel, but the reason I say that is the majority of Mr. Longo's directorial filmography is music videos, and this movie certainly has its moments where it looks like a fucking music video. Like I said, it looks like the Game Gear ads that they ran in the early 90s.
Or that big chunk where he goes into the VR mode. That's the Amazing video. Aerosmith Amazing. I was waiting for Alicia Silverstone to show up.
Yeah, we've said this countless times on this podcast. The biggest crime a movie can commit, especially when what we're watching these for, is being boring.
It's so boring.
If you're gonna be bad, be really bad, so we can remember how bad you were.
I mean, it has its moments in the so bad it's good category.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime Dolph Lundgren is on screen, I would just. Yes, it's 6 minutes, but they're kind of glorious.
It is, and because he's just such a, like we talked about in The Punisher, just a polished actor.
Yeah,
I don't think he got typecast for sure. But he was good in The Punisher, and he's good here. But it's such a weird character that does not fit in line with anything else that's going on in the movie.
If you're gonna have somebody that's so weird in this world, then you need to give him more screen time.
Yeah.
I don't really need more Yakuza.
The first thing, howdy sinners, and then just gets run over by a car. It's like, for fuck's sake. Yeah, I mean, truth be told, I find the germ of that idea, like the Yakuza in a sci-fi movie, I think that could be really fucking dope, but...
give everybody a laser whip.
The laser whip is fucking awesome. But yeah, if the ending's going to be Shinji getting his head taken off by the laser whip, just don't do it to Coyote Shivers 5 minutes earlier.
Yeah, that was... It's so unnecessary, too.
That, for whatever reason, bothered me a lot more than anything else that happened in the movie.
More than the dolphin?
Why not? When we got to that point in the movie, why not?
Well, yeah. I mean, I mean, honestly, I can't justify the dolphin. I could see how you would think, well, nobody will see this coming. And I wish that it was a better reveal. I don't know. I
think the biggest part was the dolphin looked like a horrible animatronic.
Well, it looked ridiculous anyway, even if it was a real dolphin, because he has all that gear strapped to it.
Mm-hmm.
I know William Gibson. I've never read any of his books, but I know he's kind of a big name author. I remember from my Barnes and Noble days, he has he has a shelf. So is this just a problem of bad translation from page to screen, or rather from page to screenplay to screen? And this is a story that deserves the space, the depth that you can achieve writing prose, instead of having all these characters on the screen, rapid firing all this information at you. And I can see how it was supposed to be an interesting world, and it was supposed to be this very, I guess, immersive experience into the future, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't really work, because half the time you don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Tank Girl, it's the same year that it came out, and that movie has a bit of that movie apparently, like this, has a very rabid cult following. But to what you're saying is what I've always said about Watchmen. It's like, obviously it's a bit different being a novel and a graphic novel, but at the same time, the story at its core is not something that not every story can fucking transition into a movie successfully.
I would watch the hell out of Zack Snyder's Johnny Mnemonic.
Of course. I'm a glutton for punishment, so absolutely I would watch that.
Just focusing on Dolph Lundgren's abs. He comes out, hello, sinners.
And that was like, the slasher fan in me was very disappointed that his Jesus knife only got used once and he didn't even get to see it be used. But that's the whole point. There's like this movie, it's all these different sprinkles of germs of ideas that, like, oh, that's cool. Like the whole idea of the movie, they have
a courier that carries information in his head.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
It just make it a series of short stories with different deliveries, and sometimes he's delivering porn, and sometimes he's delivering important confidential information, and sometimes he's delivering...
As weird as it is, we talk about it not being fleshed out well enough, but you can make a really good short film with this.
Yeah. There's the action scenes are nothing to write home about, so you could just get rid of all of them and just streamline it. I think that you establish what he does, having to do like a couple runs, and then eventually he has that package in his head that's too important and everybody's after it. You can do a good story. You can make a good story out of that. It just doesn't happen here, because they're constantly either explaining stuff that ideally you shouldn't have to explain, or just throwing random terms at you. Like Minority Report, like I mentioned earlier, because
Love that movie.
me too. And that movie creates a future where you could get lost explaining that future.
Mm-hmm.
But Spielberg never fell into that trap. Instead, he's just like, look, there's this stuff here, and if you get it, you get it. But if not, the important thing is what's happening to Tom Cruise. And whereas here, I think that
they're trying to baby the audience, and all it does is makes things way more confusing.
Right. They're throwing all these like weird terms and explaining. I mean, you are in trouble when the opening shot of your movie is this scroll that has all this information, and we even rewinded it because you were missing it at first. So I got to read it twice, and it still felt like just homework.
And it's lengthy.
Right. That's the problem. I mean, you're starting having to explain a lot of stuff, and not in the fun kind of like,
Star
let's
Wars
set the
way.
scene. Exactly. This is not just, we're going to tell you what's happening right now. No, they tell you a whole movie's worth of backstory.
Homework's a really good way of putting it, because you already feel like
oh, I need to
you should be
remember all
taking
this stuff.
notes and
Yeah,
shit,
exactly.
yeah.
It's like, oh, you need to remember that the name of the factions, and you need to remember like the disease, and you need to remember what the mnemonics are, and all this stuff. But just show me Keanu Reeves waking up, and then I'll figure it out as we go. Don't give me all the shit that I need to remember, because I don't know the story, so I don't know what's important and what isn't. I'm counting on you to tell me, and if you put all this stuff in writing, then I'm assuming it's all important.
Yeah. Dina Meyer, this was her first full-length film. I didn't look up her filmography. I'll pull that up right now.
I did glance at it because when she showed up, I told you, oh, from Starship Troopers, and you just gave me a blank stare.
She's in a movie called Stranger Than Fiction. That's not the Stranger Than Fiction. They were like, Star Trek Nemesis. She's in the first Saw. My God. She's in Wild Things, Diamond in the Rough. She's in Saw 2. Hold on. She's in Saw 3.
Holy cow.
Saw 4.
Did she make it to the end?
No, cuts off there.
Oh, no.
Jigsaw got her. She was in Piranha 3D. So point being, it looks like it was kind of par for the course of what was to come, which is fine. It looks like her filmography is just one of, I wouldn't call this movie camp, but Starship Troopers and fucking Saw. Those movies are, despite what the Saw faithful would have you believe, that movie's fucking just torture porn camp.
Well, she's good in this.
Yeah.
She's better than Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
She does what she can with what they've given her.
And also leading credence to my next point of acting credits. Someone who is not a conditioned actor, Henry Rollins, was perfectly fine in this as well.
Yeah, and I was not kidding, Contrarians Corner. It felt good to just have somebody whose job in the movie was to give answers.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to, it's like the cheat sheet for your homework. Henry Rollins is here to tell you at least what's going on and what makes sense. Once you find out that what he's carrying in his head is the cure for the disease that she has and that other people have, then at least you kind of know where you stand in this movie, and you can relax about a few things and try to enjoy the ride.
Again, this is going back to the movie itself. They don't really establish that is like a cancer in the modern society. So when you hear what it is, it's just like, okay.
Right. They mention it once in the opening scroll, and then they kind of mention that she has it, but there's so much shit going on that you can't really be sure that what she has is the disease that was mentioned once before at the beginning of the movie. I
can't help but feel with this movie it would have been easier to follow if we understood why all these parties have a huge vested interest right off the bat.
Right, instead of keeping it secret.
Yeah. Why am I giving Avatar credit twice on this podcast? But the Unobtainium, they tell you right fucking away why they're there. With this, I think, it would be more helpful, because even still, if it was the exact same movie, but you change that, that at the beginning, that still lightens up some of the confusion that can happen later on.
Right. I don't have to. Yeah. You're 100% correct, because then you know exactly where everybody's coming from, and it makes it easier to follow. The blue lady, the avatar to the main pharma guy,
Zoe Saldana.
Yes. the Zoe Saldana to his
the conscience, the redheaded. Again, we don't really know what that is.
We don't know what that is, and for no reason, she just decides to spill the beans at the very end of the movie.
Is she Alexa?
Maybe, or Siri.
Siri.
It depends, and if you're going with iPhones or with Android, or
that's fair. Yeah, it was just like we said, the main crime of this was that it was boring. They tried to cram too much in. You have to tread lightly when transitioning sci-fi movies like this, especially. And I imagine I was fucking 8 at the time, but I imagined that the idea was, following Speed, we're going to market this for the masses. And if you're doing like a sci-fi movie that you're hoping that mainstream audiences are going to cling on to, you got to dumb that shit down. I mean, you got to dumb it way down now in fucking 2018. But back then, Star Wars has never been very hard to follow if you have a functioning brain. And it also, Speed was such a big deal, it seems to get away from that. Because Keanu's almost, the fact that he's a doofus is like almost accentuated in that movie.
Right, here he's
for being like a macho like jock type person. And
I think that's the other big problem with the movie. Because ultimately I can get by not knowing what's going on and kind of having the information overload.
Yeah.
If I'm following an interesting character. But really, he's just as interesting as a piece of luggage.
Mm-hmm.
He has his
I don't know, man. I've seen some pretty interesting luggage, and
it's a piece of boring luggage.
It's a cardboard box.
He has his big meltdown halfway through the movie. The one time in the movie that he seems to have any sort of character, before he has his rant, his tantrum about wanting room service and wanting his laundry done and wanting the prostitute or whatever. I had no idea he wanted those things.
No.
He's just walking from point A to point B with no personality whatsoever. So when he has that meltdown, I was like, oh, wow, look, a human being.
And we come into the movie with him, I want out of this. And it's like, why? What happened? Like,
right. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
What's going on?
How'd you get into it in the first place?
There's nothing. He doesn't give you anything.
No.
It's just like, oh, well, now I need to get here. Now I need to get here. Now I need to get here. But who are you?
Dropping someone into a situation is fine, and you can pull it off perfectly. What's that movie I suck all the time? Good Time.
I was gonna say Big Time.
Big Time. Good Time drops you right in and doesn't give you enough time to ask questions. You just understand and follow. The problem with it is like there's all these different side spurs, and like the movie creates its own questions that it doesn't even answer, and it's you're wondering the whole time, why the fuck is any of this happening?
But Big Time from the very Big Time. Now I'm doing
Big
it.
Time.
Good Time from the very beginning. You're like, oh, he cares about his brother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can latch on to that, and now I know that everything he's doing is because he cares about his brother. But
just imagining Udo Kier playing the brother character. Yeah,
just bleeding somewhere.
It just makes no sense.
Yeah, he cares about nothing. That's why the Dinah Meyer character, at least, it's a little more easier to relate to, because you at least get that she's trying to prove herself, right? She's trying to, and she's sick, and she's trying to cure herself of that. I don't know. You can kind of tell there's a little bit of personality there. Keanu, and even after his big meltdown, it's not like that affects the rest of the movie.
Far be it for me to criticize The Dark Knight Rises, because it is a perfect film, but we're talking about this now, and it's making me realize it's a lot like the Selena Kyle character in that movie. Of like, she just shows up and wants out of this life, and it's like, okay, why? What happened? Like, what do you with Keanu here? It's like he just shows up first frame, and it's like, I got to get this is the last one. I'm getting out of here, and
right,
it never explains what happened.
But the comparison, the big difference is that you are dealing with actual characters that people already know. People know who Catwoman is, so you're not starting from a blank slate.
I'm trying to treat it like it's a bottle, like a bottle film, which obviously it's not. But yeah, but to the point, it's just like it creates like I just said, it creates these questions that it doesn't need to, and then never answers them.
Yeah, and then you get to the end, and it's really,
what have we accomplished?
Yeah, what did it all matter? Okay, so I guess in the macro way, of course, they got the cure out, and that's good for the planet. But I have no idea who gives a shit that he gets the memories of his tricycle back at the very end.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like that's something that haunts him through the movie. He casually mentions it as in like, oh, well, as part of the procedure, they had to remove some memories. Who cares? He even says it. So it's not like we see him being tortured by this loss, that really the reason he wants to quit being a mnemonic courier is because he wants to find out what happened in his past, or he wants to stop losing memories or whatever. No, he's just this cardboard.
Which that would make a compelling story and be interesting.
Right. But no, so really, it's
Like
not
Inception.
even. It's not even so much. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan's Johnny Mnemonic.
Oh God. Bwah.
Just shots of Keanu holding his temples.
In the car that's crashing in slow motion. That's the final frontier, Keanu in a Christopher Nolan movie.
We're not ready.
Or not.
Maybe in 2021, the Mnemonic remake.
They'll try to relaunch it. Yeah, and again, we already touched on this, but Keanu is perfect in certain roles, and this is not like the type of role for a Keanu Reeves. This would be like for who would be good in this role? The role of Johnny Mnemonic.
Christian Bale.
Jesus.
Anybody that... Well, no, but see, here's the thing. The problem is that we don't know what he was going for. Is Johnny Mnemonic supposed to be this emotionless being because of what's happening to his brain? Because if that's the case, then Keanu Reeves was going about it the right way, but the movie wasn't, because maybe he wasn't supposed to be... He shouldn't have been the person that we're following.
Yeah.
The movie should have been about Dynamite or about...
Ice-T.
Ice-T or Henry Rollins, and with Keanu Reeves' character kind of in the background. And then you're like, oh, that's cool. He's just this thing that exists in this world.
Because there's no, what we're saying here, there's no reason to get emotionally invested in his story arc. Because
Right.
he doesn't care, so why should we?
Yeah, he just wants the shit off his head.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Sorry. Sorry you're getting paid all this money and get to fly to Beijing for this shit. Get to play with the net that we're not allowed on. Yeah, man, this was not good. 14% is fitting. It's not an F, because there are some things I took away and enjoyed.
Other than Dolph Lundgren and... Oh, I guess Henry Rollins.
Yeah, it would be a D.
I was not as enamored with Henry Rollins as you were, but I don't think it's his fault. I think that he comes in to be the Doc Brown of the movie, just to explain. He brings his blackboard and starts just drawing the explanations in there for what's
his
happening.
Doctor's coat on and his pointer pen. This is how NAS affects the white blood cell count.
Yes. Great Scott, you have the cure.
Great Scott. That was painful. I'm not. We've done over 100 movies or close to 100 movies at this point, and
this is bottom tier. I mean, I am giving it 1 star, 1 out of 5. I can't really. There's not enough Dolph Lundgren to give it another half star.
God bless.
And it is a chore to get through. But I think that I really do think that if you're maybe into that kind of stuff, if you're like a cyberpunk person, then that gives you the background to maybe assimilate this kind of story a little more easily.
I feel like there's like the holy trinity of these mid-90s cyberpunk movies. It's like this, Hackers.
Tank Girl.
Well, Tank Girl's more of a steampunk. It's not,
yeah.
Well, the Net's not a cyberpunk one either, but faithful listeners of the Contrarians, what rounds out the holy trinity of mid-90s cyberpunk? There's Johnny Mnemonic, Hackers, and blank. We anxiously await your response.
Spit and polish. Tell us.
Yeah, I would be very fascinated to talk to someone that really likes this movie.
Yeah, but I think that really it would be one of those conversations where their explanation why they like it would basically be like, oh, because I have the experience that adds to this movie. It's not because of the movie. It's because what I bring to the movie when I watch it.
Like me with Ready to Rumble.
Right, exactly. You're like, well, I enjoy it because I'm familiar with this world.
Yeah.
So the storytelling may be shitty, but I can still get something out of it.
I
know why what's his name carries I don't know. Was it Sting that carries a baseball bat?
Yeah, good one.
Is it a baseball bat?
Yeah.
Holy shit! What have you done to me?
The most famous wrestling journalist in the world, Dave Meltzer, tweeted about Ready to Rumble the other day because someone asked him about it, and he was like, "That movie was one of the worst things to ever happen. It portrayed the business as a trash industry and the fans as dumb rednecks." And I responded, "Well, to be fair, it's a trash industry, and all the fans are dumb rednecks."
Blocked.
Yeah. All right. So Johnny Mnemonic was there. I agree with what you said. I put it in the lower tier. Usually, and by usually I mean literally probably 95% of the time when we do this, it never feels like a chore, and it never feels like I've said this a couple times, but this is not a movie I would rewatch on my own, and it's not a movie that I probably would have ever finished if it wasn't for this podcast.
Well, Alex, you know what's coming then.
What's that?
Is it worse than Christmas with the Cranks?
No.
And that is why, because of Dolph Lundgren.
Just I don't know if anything will ever top
you understood what was going on in Christmas with the Cranks.
Well, we did that Christmas story arc. I remember telling you, I was like, I just threw in the towel on Rent. It's not that I dislike Rent. It's just I can't do musicals like that. And I would have done the same thing with Christmas with the Cranks, but since you were here and we had to watch it, I just had to let it happen to me. That's got to be in like the lower tier of movies I've ever seen. And I think it's just because they degrade Jamie Lee Curtis to such a way that it... And
that
the
is
story...
the final straw.
Look, this movie, Johnny Mnemonic, the plot makes way more sense than in Christmas with the Cranks of them just not being able to tell their daughter they can't fucking have Christmas this year. Fuck that movie.
And this is a movie that includes a dolphin in its climax.
Exactly. A dolphin hacker.
Dude, that just feels
sound.
Like, I'm sure that's the kind of shit that if you're into cyberpunk, you're like, of course. But to people like us, it's like, what the fuck? Did you just give up?
Yeah, it's like the nerdgasm. Like you're in a sold out theater and everyone's like, huh? And then you just hear the one guy in the back, ah!
They brought a dolphin. They got it.
What's the name of it? It's Jones. They got Jones right.
It's a guy that's being afraid that when they finally adapt this story to the screen, they were gonna puss out on that, and they were gonna
fuck up Jones.
Right, they were gonna cast, Vincent D'Onofrio or something.
Just Alfred Molina with like the monocle. That's probably true. There's probably one person out there that fucking marked the fuck out for Jones, if not multiple people. But no, I greatly am looking forward to the follow up to this with Speed, because I'm a big fan of Speed. It's there's multiple movies that Sandra Bullock should have won an Oscar for over The Blind Side, and Speed is one of them. And also it'll give me an excuse to post one of my favorite MTV award show moments ever, of when Adam Sandler and Sandra Bullock were presenting an award the following year after Speed, and Sandra Bullock got tripped up and started reading the teleprompter at the wrong time, and she's asked Adam Sandler, she's like, so what was it like kissing Keanu Reeves? That's wonderful. In the interim, we will be having a Christmas bonus episode that will be dropping on Christmas Day.
To be determined.
Yeah,
right
we're still tinkering with some ideas. So.
Well, I posted a promo online for something that's not to be yet.
Yes.
Our Street Fighter episode with the guys from Watch a Thing is being delayed until January because the holidays, scheduling conflicts and all that stuff. We could do it by ourselves, but then it would be as much fun as having two Australian big hairy guys defending Street Fighter along with us. Agreed.
So we'll postpone that. So in the interim, Julio and I are going to consult our collections of Christmas movies, and we'll figure something out. At this point, we'll drop it as a surprise. We won't say what it is. So,
well, unless you check our webpage, or I could just put like a big question mark.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that.
A big question mark shaped like the Family Stone poster. And then January 1st, we'll have Speed, which would be a much more enjoyable experience than this. So moving along here to plugs to close out this episode of The Contrarians. As always, we want to give a shout out to the Festive Years, who provide our opening and closing tracks. As always, opening track Last Stand, closing track Summer of 99. They are online. Those come from the album Don't Let Me Use You. And our logo, Julio?
Our logo is from Hans-Rolf Gieser, who has his own podcast called Nacion Combi. He can be reached at mildemonios@hotmail.com. That's MILDEMONIOS. And he's also on Twitter at mildemonios. He can do your logo. He can answer questions about his podcast. And he also has opinions about stuff. He actually sent us an MP3 with his, I was going to say thoughts on our episode about The Fly, but no, it's more about he's seen the original Fly movie, and he was not a fan, so I'm going to play it right here.
I have seen the original Fly movie. In Spanish it was shown as The Fly with the White Head in TNT. You know how in Spanish the titles sometimes are something completely different. Anyway, it was that movie with Vincent Price, and there is a reason why you guys haven't seen it. It's not shown very much because it's really bad. It's awful. Even for the standards of an horror movie from the 50s. It's boring, it's predictable, the story is quite different. It's about this scientist who makes some kind of experiment, and his head and arm is exchanged with the head and arm from a fly. This fly gets away the fly with a white head. The scientist ends up with the head and hand of a fly. In this condition, he has to revert the experiment. But first, he has to capture the fly, which is flying around the house like a Three Stooges sketch. It's really bad. I felt sorry for Vincent Price. And the sequel to The Fly 2, is not really bad. Of course, it's not David Cronenberg level, but it's okay. I saw it in the cinema, I remember. Here it was shown as Where's the Fly or something like that. It's more adventure and juvenile, but it has sense and it's a good story. Although it's better to see it as an independent story, free from The Fly 1.
Interesting.
So the funny thing is that didn't really make me want to watch The Fly 2, but really made me want to watch the Vincent Price version.
Yeah, that when he said it was really bad even for horror standards in the 50s, I was like, ooh, this might be...
But also, so was it Vincent Price with like with a fly mask like on him, or I mean, there's no CGI back then, so it has to have been that.
Oh God, that sounds just absolutely wonderful.
Or did they get a stunt double and Vincent Price just dubbed the dialogue after? I don't know. And the idea of seeing like a little fly with Vincent Price's head flying around the house.
It's like an old movie with the eight-legged freaks, and they just have like the frames of super zoomed in spiders dubbed over. Yeah, I'm all in on that.
Yeah, I think it might need to be at least a bonus episode if we can find it.
Unfortunately, that backfired on you, my friend, trying to dissuade us from watching it.
Or maybe that was his plan all along.
It is. He owns the last remaining copy on DVD. Julio, do you have any plugs? Or actually, I'll go ahead and kick us off. So by the time you listen to this, it may be up on our website. It may not be up until the beginning of next week, but this past Monday, December 10th, was the 25th anniversary of Wayne's World 2, which is my favorite comedy of all time. And I felt the need to write up something about it and why it is my favorite comedy. It's taken a bit longer than I thought, just because basically the way I'm arranging it is, like an introductory into it, and then the top 10 reasons why it's my favorite comedy of all time. And I've been like, it's basically organizing them in the correct order of why it really is. And probably
is it top 10 reasons you old jabronis are wrong about Wayne's World 2?
Why y'all wrong about Wayne's World 2? I think there's so much brilliance to that movie, and I understand that's probably, when you read this, it's probably more thought than anyone's ever put into Wayne's World 2, but that's my favorite comedy of all time, so I felt the need to write something about it. So when you're listening to this, if it's not up yet, just check back to the page. I'm sure we'll share it on Twitter and Facebook.
We'll definitely make the announcement
that it's dropped. Last night I stayed up way too late and watched Muppets Take Manhattan, which is my favorite Muppets movie, and just a reminder of just how fucking great that movie is. So,
is that the movie where Kermit gets hit by a cab?
He gets amnesia.
That's fucked up, dude. I saw that in theaters, and that messed me up. I did not know that Muppets could get hurt. And so when that happens, it's a big shock.
But then he gets snapped back in when Piggy hits him.
Well, yeah, but that's, you're used to that. I'm just saying, as a kid watching a movie,
that's fair.
That's a little hard to take.
Well, I love it. And at the end, Piggy and Kermit get married, and like the whole cast from Sesame Street's there. It's fucking wonderful. And then Liza Minnelli, like not taking herself too seriously in that one. She has like a cameo in it, where they're in like a restaurant, and Kermit's trying to present himself as like a famous French producer. So he takes down, it's like a restaurant, they put up all the 8x10s of the actors that have been in there. So he takes down Liza Minnelli's and then puts up a picture of himself, and Liza Minnelli like comes in and she asks like the maitre d', did I do something wrong? It's really funny. Spider-Man, the new PS4 game, I was playing it when Julio got back today. That game is fucking awesome, and if you've played it, I don't need to tell you that. It's just, my gaming, as you guys can tell from if you've listened to this very long, it's infrequent, but when I do pick up a game, I get super into it if it's good. The last one was Call of Duty Zombies, and this Spider-Man game has been occupying a great deal of the TV bandwidth in the house, if it's not myself. My sister, who also lives here, is playing it quite often.
And that's only PS4?
Correct.
Why?
That's how you sell consoles, man. Make exclusive titles.
That's bullshit.
Xbox, I'm sure, has something that's cool, too.
Spider-Boy.
And lastly, the British Baking Show. Are you familiar with this?
I've heard of it.
Oh, God. It's just wonderful binging TV, and they have it on Netflix now. That's the plug. Watch the British Baking Show. It's a lot of fun. It's like one of those things of like, the first time I heard about it, I was like, this sounds stupid. And then like I watched a half hour. I was like, oh God, this is so engaging.
I mean, I can't make fun of you because I watch both Hell's Kitchen and MasterChef. So I'm a big Gordon Ramsay fan.
Mm-hmm.
So my question now is, this British show, is it like gentle? Or is it just a full-on raging asshole like Gordon
No,
Ramsay?
it's
like
gentle, but like it's also they're so like the British are typically so polite that even when they like, oh, this is the worst one yet, but they say things and it doesn't sound nearly as devastating as when Gordon Ramsay does it.
He's British too.
Is he?
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
what
he
makes
was,
it so
like,
much fun.
Austrian.
No. He's
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I've been watching all this time, misjudging his accent. But
It's possible, but the particular hosts on this are good. And then there's also a great sketch from SNL a few years ago where they did a spoof of the British baking show that had Emily Blunt on it, and she was like just like a junkie that was just trying to get money, and so she did this, and it's like all these like really good chefs, and then she just like makes a cake and sticks like Twizzlers in it and shit, and she's like, yeah, this is what I made. So all that, Wayne's World 2, Muppets Take Manhattan, Spider-Man the game for PlayStation 4, and the British Baking Show.
I have a little bit more feedback. Chaz Fisher.
Oh boy.
Constantly referenced here. He didn't send us an MP3, but he felt the need to point out that we need to rewatch the original Terminator, because you might remember that during our Fly episode, we were kind of wondering why is it that the Terminator needs to show up naked when he's a machine, right? Because Kyle Reese makes sense, but if the Terminator is a machine, then why does he need to be naked, right? And then Chaz says that we must have forgotten that the Terminator needed his living tissue skin in order to time travel, which honestly I don't remember. I'm going to take his word for it. But so I guess that explains why he's naked. I still don't think so, right? Because you could have the living tissue and have the jacket and pants on.
But what if they like fuse together, like teleport in together?
Like it would happen on the Fly.
Yeah.
But then wouldn't it fuse together with his metal stuff already?
Well, that'd be a dead giveaway. If he's just like a fucking exoskeleton, like a walking metal skeleton with a flannel fuse to it.
No. But what I'm saying is that would the living tissue skin, would it not fuse with the exoskeleton? Maybe that's like a deleted scene where...
Whatever the case, he had to be
explain-
naked because one, we get Arnold ass, and two, because he's naked, we get fucking blue mohawked Bill Paxton pulling a switchblade and saying, fuck you, asshole.
Hey,
Oddly enough, that's the exact same line he had in Titanic.
All right. And then I watched... Have you gotten around to watching Hunger?
The Fassbender movie?
The Fassbender
Oh,
movie?
yeah, it's excellent.
Okay, I finally watched it. They had it up on movie, and that was rough.
Yeah, that's Steve McQueen's, those really feel-good movies that he turns out.
Well, he has his new movie that he has out. It's kind of like a fun
Yeah,
romp.
when I saw the trailer for that, I was like, and then it was directed by Steve McQueen. I was like, huh? That does not make any sense.
He decided to give us a break, and this is just a well-executed thriller, I guess, and a heist movie.
At this rate, his next movie is going to be like fucking The Rock and, I don't know.
The Tooth Fairy.
Jesus.
Fassbender.
The Rock and Jonah Hill doing something, go back to college.
So yeah, he's I watch Hunger, and that was
Fassbender's incredible in it.
It's brutal.
Oh yeah.
It was just, I already knew that it was supposed to be brutal, and still just really like it was a rough watch. So
I think out of that 1, 2, 3 he did, the 2-piece and a leg kick of Hunger, Shame, and 12 Years a Slave, I think Hunger might be the one I'd be most inclined to revisit.
see, I wouldn't, because it's just so hard to watch.
You tell me 12 Years a Slave isn't hard to watch?
But it has a happy ending, so you can get through it because Brad Pitt Jesus is coming at the end.
That's right. My mind always immediately goes to like the lashing scenes and the rape and shit.
Striker.
And like, oh yeah, and then fucking cockbag Garrett Dillahunt that rats him out.
Okay, I should have said it has a happy ending relative to where Shame and Hunger end, especially Hunger.
I own Shame, and I have never rewatched it since I saw it in the theater.
Because you have Shame.
I do have Shame. It was one of those. The Blu-ray was like $5. It was like, hell yeah. And then like sometimes I'll just look at it on the shelf and be like,
it deserves a revisit. I think it's better than 12 Years a Slave, and definitely better than Widows. I don't know about Hunger.
Yeah, until you said it, because my brain just goes to the really brutal shit in that movie. I did forget that Brad Pitt is Jesus in 12 Years a Slave. God bless.
But yeah, so I watch Hunger. Good movie. I mean, watch it.
It's
just
worth
be prepared.
watching for Fassbender's performance.
Just brace yourself, because it's a rough watch.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing, remember when at the end of the Summer of Travolta we said, okay, well, how long till we have a relapse? And I forgot to bring it up. It actually happened a few weeks ago where I had a Travolta relapse, and I watched Domestic Disturbance. And is that Domestic Disturbance, the one where his ex-wife marries Vince Vaughn, and Vince Vaughn is some sort of criminal that's trying to...
I have no idea.
It's not good.
Up.
It's
Okay.
not good. It's not a plug. This is just me telling
okay.
you. Domestic Disturbance sucks, and I watch also Urban Cowboy.
Yeah.
Not what I would call a good movie.
It's interesting.
I mean, I'm glad I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll need to watch it again.
Mm.
I got a vibe of just like a southern Saturday Night Fever, kind of. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. That I watched it, and I think
I'm just trying to think of scenes from Saturday Night Fever that could be remade with a southern motif.
Well, you know what I mean? He's doing the rodeo thing, and he dances, and he's just this popular guy, but he's also a huge asshole.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as his character in Saturday Night Fever, only he has the accent.
Whoa. Pump the brakes, kid. Saturday Night Fever's an all-timer.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so also lesser quality.
Yeah.
And the longer it goes, and it's really long, the longer it goes, the worse it gets.
Shockingly less racism.
Yes. Well, everybody's friendlier down south. So, but anyway, the only reason this is related, because it's not a plug, is that I also almost accidentally started watching the Get Shorty TV show. They have the first season on Netflix.
Post about this.
Dude, it is really good. It's 10 episodes for the first season. I've seen 4 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's gotten to the point where it's markedly different from the movie. It's obviously. It's just the basic idea of this mobster, this guy that has ties to the mob, decides to move to LA and try to make it into the movie business. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the resemblance it has to the movie and to the book. But so in the Travolta role, the role of the mobster is Chris O'Dowd.
Nice.
You know him.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
For some reason, the first thing that always jumps to mind with anyone I talked about him is, he's the cop from Bridesmaids.
I was about to tell you, the cop
Yeah.
from Bridesmaids. And then in the Gene Hackman role, sort of, the producer that he ends up meeting over there and teaming up with is Ray Romano.
I'm in.
That's all I should have to say, and then you're in. But the cast of characters is very interesting. And of course, they have a whole season, for all I know, a whole 3 seasons. I don't know how long it's going to take them to make this movie. I mean, I'm at episode 4, and they're still trying to figure out the financing. But they can expand, right? So in Get Shorty, Travolta gets everything done pretty quickly and pretty effortlessly. And but here, it's just like every step is a struggle. And then a couple episodes in, then you really see the marked difference between the Travolta character and the Chris O'Dowd character, because Chris O'Dowd is an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy you're kind of rooting for, but then he starts doing some really, really reprehensible stuff. Then now you're not watching somebody that's Chili Palmer, except that he's not called Chili Palmer. There's a completely different character, and that's pretty exciting because I have at least 6 more episodes to go with this guy. I don't know how much farther he's gonna fall. If
Something
he's
new, basically.
Yeah. It's a completely different dynamic. And Ray Romano is a very different character than Gene Hackman. Also, he's just this guy that's much like Gene Hackman. He's kind of like a B movie director, straight to video kind of guy. But unlike Gene Hackman, he has a chip on his shoulder from the one time he tried to make a big prestige movie. So this kind of becomes his chance to get it right. It's really good.
Nice.
So if you have time,
there's too much content out there, man.
I know, but that's why I started playing it as something that I was not expecting to get hooked on, just something to have in the background, and then end up getting hooked. So just beware that it will hook you.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians. That was Johnny Mnemonic. Up next in our chronological series will be Speed. But before then, we'll be dropping a bonus Christmas episode yet to be determined. In the meantime, take care. Send us whatever that trifecta of gold was in the cyberpunk era. We'll be sure to at least acknowledge it and give a stern nod to it. We thank you all, as always, for joining us here on The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
Get in the car, I'll grab the keys. Let's go make this summer one that's full of memories. You won't regret it. I know a place outside of town. I think you'll really love it. At night when no one is around, we'll drive into the sunset. Promise me you won't forget that summer of 1999. Back when you blew my mind and told me secrets in the dark. I'm just fine. Thanks for asking. I just can't quite get by that time in 1999.
So my Johnny Mnemonic story. This is Johnny Mnemonic origins. Back in the Johnny Mnemonic came
Him
out.
through all the wars in the beginning.
So this is 1995, right?
Correct.
That was
Summer of
when-
95.
That's crazy.
That summer of 1995.
Yeah, because it was. I mean, obviously, back in the 90s, you didn't get home video that quickly, but it was my first year in film school, so it was early '96, and Blockbuster had just opened. The first Blockbuster ever had opened in Peru.
Fuck yeah.
And before that, it was the Wild West. It was just mom and pop video stores selling bootlegs, right? Stuff that they had taped off TV or they had taped off original tapes somewhere in the United States. So the selection was magnificent because it didn't cost them anything to get movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly Blockbuster showed up. Well, first the government started cracking down on piracy.
Yeah.
And that opened the door for Blockbuster to come in and say, well, we're all legal and we have a pretty good selection because we can afford it. And so mom and pop video stores started going out of business, and Blockbuster became the destination, right? But I mean, I'm in film school, and the teachers, I used to just telling people, hey, go watch this movie, and people would get it right away because of piracy. And now suddenly Blockbuster is there, and I have this one teacher that is just livid that he went to Blockbuster and they didn't have Johnny Mnemonic. And I remember, I mean, I didn't even have internet back then, but I remember just kind of like making the connection. Well, that's because the video for Johnny Mnemonic is not out yet, and they only carry the original stuff. But my teacher spent at least 10 to 15 minutes just ranting against Blockbuster and really creating this expectation in the entire class that Johnny Mnemonic was going to be this amazing movie when we finally got to it. So you can imagine, one, my excitement when I finally got to rent Johnny Mnemonic from Blockbuster months later, and two, my disappointment when I finally watched Johnny Mnemonic. I was like, what is this shit? Really, probably the only reason I remember Johnny Mnemonic. Or I remember,
that's fair. God, I couldn't imagine like being amped about seeing this movie and then
it was my aesthetics.
The world come crashing down.
Yeah, my aesthetics professor. I can imagine he probably had seen maybe some pictures. I heard what it was about, and he's like, man, they're depicting the future, the internet. And then you see it, and even in 1996, I could tell it was a shit movie.
I'm sorry for the experience. Yeah, I could not imagine like waiting with bated breath for this like I did for The Dark Knight, and then just being like, oh, it's a dolphin.